You always think betrayal will come from the outside, from enemies, strangers, maybe a coworker you barely know. You never expect it to come from the two people who raised you, and the person you trusted most in the world. I was 24 when it happened. Just out of college, working my first real job, and still living at home while saving up to move out. My parents were strict but supportive, or at least that's what I believed back then. And then there was Sarah, my best friend since third grade, the kind of best friend who knew everything, my fears, my secrets, my past. She had seen me through heartbreaks, late-night breakdowns, even my parents' constant pressure to become someone I didn't want to be. We were inseparable. Or so I thought. It started slowly, in ways I didn't even notice at first. Sarah would ask questions that felt just a little off, like, "Are you still planning to leave your job?" Or, "What's your backup plan if you and Marcus don't work out?" Harmless things, right? Stuff best friends talk about. But they started piling up. One day, she mentioned something I had told her months ago, something private about my mental health, while we were hanging out with a group of people I didn't know very well. She brushed it off with a laugh, but I felt cold all over, like she'd opened a door I didn't give her permission to touch. Then came the dinner. It was a Saturday night, and my mom told me she invited Sarah over for dinner, said it had been too long since she'd seen her. I thought it was a little weird. My mom had never been especially close to Sarah, but I didn't question it. The evening was off. Sarah was quiet at first, unusually tense. My parents, on the other hand, were weirdly animated, asking her questions about my job, my savings, even Marcus, my boyfriend. At first, I thought it was just nosiness. Then my mom said, "We're just glad you're keeping her grounded, Sarah. She doesn't always make the smartest choices." I looked at her, stunned. What's that supposed to mean? She smiled, that fake, tight-lipped smile she used when she was hiding something. "Oh, just that you get emotional sometimes. It's good you have someone like Sarah to keep you on track." Sarah didn't say anything. She just gave me a little side glance. Not quite guilt, not quite apology. I felt something twist in my gut. Later that night, I confronted Sarah as she was leaving. I asked her what the hell that dinner was about, why my parents were acting like she was some sort of supervisor over my life. She hesitated. Then she laughed nervously and said I was overthinking it. "Your mom just likes me. Maybe more than she likes you sometimes." She meant it as a joke, but it didn't land that way. The next week, things escalated. Marcus told me he ran into Sarah randomly at a cafe, only she had asked him a lot of specific questions. About me, about whether I seemed stable, whether I was talking about quitting my job. He thought it was odd. I thought it was terrifying. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I checked her messages. I knew her password. She hadn't changed it in years. I didn't plan to snoop. I just needed to know. I wish I could say I was surprised by what I found. There were messages. Between her and my mother, dozens of them. My mom had been paying her. Not huge sums, but regular payments, labeled as thanks, appreciation, and once flat-out info. There were conversations where my mom asked for updates. Has she mentioned moving again? Is she still seeing that boy? Tell me if she does anything stupid. And Sarah responded. Every time. Sometimes with details I hadn't even told Marcus. I sat there, scrolling, shaking, unable to breathe. My mother was buying information about me from my best friend. My best friend was selling it. I took screenshots of everything. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't process it. It felt like a fever dream. That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't cry. I just sat in silence, the weight of betrayal pressing down on me like a stone. I kept thinking back to moments that had felt weird, tiny comments, random questions, conversations that had ended in awkward silence. I saw them all differently now. My entire friendship with Sarah felt like a lie, or at least the last few years of it. And my parents? The two people who were supposed to love me unconditionally? They didn't want to understand me. They wanted to control me. And when I started slipping out of their grip, they bought a spy. Next morning, I didn't say anything to my parents. I packed a bag. I told them I was going to stay with Marcus for a few days. My mom looked suspicious but didn't argue. She just said, "Text me when you get there." I didn't. I didn't know what I was going to do. But I knew one thing. I was never going back to that house again. When I got to Marcus's apartment, he could tell something was wrong before I even said a word. I must have looked wrecked, eyes sunken, hands trembling, a duffel bag thrown over my shoulder like I was running from something. And I was. Not from danger, but from something almost worse. From the betrayal that had carved a hole into my chest the night before. He didn't push me. He just opened the door, pulled me inside, and let me sit in silence. I stared at the wall for what felt like an hour before I finally spoke. I told him everything. About Sarah, about my mom, about the messages and the payments and the manipulation. Every word felt heavier than the last, and by the time I was done, I was shaking again. Marcus didn't say anything right away. Then he leaned forward and asked me the one question I'd been avoiding. "What are you going to do about it?" I didn't have an answer. For the next few days, I tried to function like a normal human being. I went to work. I answered emails. I made dinner with Marcus. But in my mind, everything was chaos. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart jumped. My mom texted once, "Just checking in. Everything okay?" I didn't respond. Sarah messaged me too, something vague like, "Can we talk?" I ignored her too. I needed space. I needed clarity. But space didn't bring clarity. It brought rage. I started replaying everything in my head. The years of advice from my parents, the little guilt trips, the way my mom always made me feel like I wasn't good enough unless I was following her plan. And Sarah, how she always made herself sound like the voice of reason, like she was just looking out for me, when really she was gathering intel for a paycheck. I couldn't keep it in. I needed to confront them. I started with Sarah. I messaged her. "Meet me at the park. You know the one," she replied almost instantly. "Okay, what's going on?" I didn't answer. When she showed up, she looked nervous, like she already knew what this was about. I didn't waste time. "I saw your messages with my mom," I said. Her face fell, completely. No lies, no playing dumb. Just sheer panic and guilt and shame, all at once. I can explain." "No," I snapped. "Don't explain. Just tell me why." She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. She looked like she was searching for a version of the truth that would make this okay. There wasn't one. "She said she was worried about you," she finally said. "That you were pulling away from the family, that you were making bad decisions. She said if I helped her understand what was going on, she could help you. She paid you, Sarah. She paid you to spy on me." "I didn't want to," she said quickly. At first it was just small stuff. I thought I was helping. I thought I could soften the blow, make her see you better. But then it just kept going. And the money, I shook my head. "You sold me out. You stood there and pretended to be my best friend while feeding everything I said to the one person who wanted to control me." "I didn't mean to hurt you," she whispered. "But you did." There was a long silence between us. I could feel my hands trembling again, but I refused to let myself cry. She didn't deserve that. "I trusted you more than anyone," I said. "And you broke that. I don't care what your intentions were. I don't care if you thought you were helping. You betrayed me." "I'm sorry," she said, barely audible. "Don't be sorry," I replied. "Just leave me alone." And then I walked away. I didn't look back. Later that night, my mother called. This time I picked up. "So," she said, her voice clipped, "you've been ignoring me." "I know what you did," I said flatly. "With Sarah, I saw everything." There was a pause. Then, "I did what I had to. You were drifting. She helped me keep an eye on you. An eye? Like I'm some kind of project? A child? You're our daughter, she said sharply. You live in our house. We have a right to know what you're doing with your life. I don't live there anymore. Oh, don't be dramatic. I'm not being dramatic, I said, my voice rising. I'm being done. Done with you controlling me, done with the lies, done with you thinking love means ownership. You're being ungrateful. I'm being honest. For once, there was a long, cold silence. Then she hung up. I stared at my phone, not knowing what to feel. Not relief, not sadness, just quiet. And in that quiet, I realized something. Sometimes the people who claim to love you the most are the ones who do the most damage. And sometimes the only way to heal is to walk away from them, even if it hurts. I stayed at Marcus's for the next few weeks while I searched for my own place. He offered to let me stay longer, but I needed my own space. I needed to rebuild. From scratch. Without Sarah, without my parents, without the guilt. When I finally moved into a small one-bedroom apartment across town, it wasn't glamorous. The walls were thin. The heating barely worked, but it was mine. And for the first time in my life, so was my freedom. Living alone was quieter than I expected. Not just in sound, but in energy. For the first time in my life, there was no one hovering, no one watching, no one subtly steering my decisions. It was terrifying and freeing all at once. I filled my days with work, grocery runs, laundry, cooking for one. Mundane things, but they grounded me. I was rebuilding from the inside out. But healing wasn't linear. Some days I'd feel strong, like I had finally broken free. Other days, I'd catch myself scrolling through old photos of Sarah and me, or rereading old text threads with my mom, wondering how it all went so wrong. Marcus stayed close. He didn't try to fix me, which I appreciated. He just showed up, sometimes with takeout, sometimes with silence, sometimes just to sit next to me while we watched something dumb on TV. His presence was steady. That steadiness was something I hadn't realized I'd been missing for years. My parents had conditioned me to expect love to be tense, filled with rules and consequences. Marcus reminded me that it didn't have to be like that. Still, the damage had been done. I was cautious now, guarded in a way I'd never been before. One afternoon, while sorting through some old boxes, I found a notebook I hadn't seen in years. Inside were pages and pages of goals, dreams, even doodles of what my perfect life would look like. Most of them had nothing to do with my parents' plans. In fact, some of them were the exact opposite. Travel the world, start a small business, get a dog, write something that mattered. None of that aligned with the job they pushed me into or the life they designed for me. I realized how far I'd strayed from the version of myself I used to believe in. And worse, I realized how much of that was because I'd been constantly under surveillance. No dream felt safe when I had to defend it in my own home. I sat on my floor for a long time, staring at those pages. Then I picked up a pen and started writing new ones. Not goals to please anyone else, not timelines to meet someone's expectations, just ideas, real ones, messy ones. Mine. A few weeks later, I ran into Sarah at a coffee shop. It was bound to happen eventually. We lived in the same city, had mutual friends, even shared a few favorite spots. She froze when she saw me. I didn't. I just walked past her. For a split second, I saw her mouth open like she was about to say something, but I kept walking. I had nothing left to say. That part of my life was closed, but not everyone let it go so easily. My father emailed me. A long message that started with, "We just want to understand," and ended with, "Don't throw away your family over a misunderstanding." I stared at it for a long time before replying with just one sentence. It's not a misunderstanding when you intentionally break someone's trust. I didn't hear back, My mom, however, escalated. She showed up at my door. It was early evening. I'd just gotten home from work, still holding my bag, when the knock came. I opened the door without checking the peephole, a habit I immediately regretted. There she was, dressed like she had just come from work, holding a plastic container of my favorite pasta. Like this was some normal visit. "I just want to talk," she said. I didn't move. "You can leave the food and go." "Can I come in?" "No." She looked genuinely surprised, like it hadn't occurred to her that I'd say no. That told me everything. "I made mistakes," she started, clutching the container tighter. "I know that. But I was trying to protect you." "By paying my best friend to spy on me?" Her jaw tensed. "She told me things I needed to hear. You were slipping away from us. You were making reckless decisions." "Reckless?" I said, laughing bitterly. "You mean independent. I wasn't following your script anymore, and that scared you. You're still our daughter." "Then act like it," I snapped. "Love me without conditions. Support me without needing control. Except that I'm not who you want me to be." She didn't answer. She just stood there, staring at me like she was seeing a stranger. Maybe she was. "I'm done with this conversation," I said quietly. "You can go. I just want us to be a family again." "So do I. But not on your terms." I closed the door. I slid down against it and exhaled. I didn't cry. Not this time. Something had shifted. I didn't feel like the powerless girl who had been manipulated in the shadows. I felt like someone who had finally chosen herself. The silence after that visit was deafening, but in the best way. No calls, no guilt-tripping messages, just space. And in that space, I started finding my rhythm again. I adopted a dog, a scrappy mutt from the shelter with one ear that flopped and one that didn't. I named him Theo. He became my shadow, my companion, and somehow the most consistent piece of joy I'd felt in years. I started journaling every morning, just 10 minutes. Thoughts, reflections, memories I hadn't touched in a long time. It was messy and unfiltered, but it was honest. I was finally listening to myself instead of everyone else, and with every page, I felt lighter. But even in peace, the past doesn't just vanish. It lingers. One night, while scrolling online, I found out Sarah had started a blog. Nothing huge, just a personal site where she posted thoughts about friendship, loyalty, and what it means to love someone who's changing. I knew immediately some of it was about me. Thinly veiled, half-true, sanitized for public sympathy. And for a second, I almost messaged her. Almost. Then I closed the tab. She could write her version. My truth didn't need defending anymore. I wasn't interested in changing the narrative. I was interested in living beyond it. Months passed. Life moved forward in ways that were subtle but steady. The routines I once dreaded became sources of comfort. Waking up with Theo nudging my arm, sipping coffee by the window, walking through the park alone, but never lonely. For once, I wasn't living according to someone else's expectations. I was choosing my own pace, my own quiet, my own peace. I still thought about everything that had happened, of course. Some memories don't just leave, but they stopped, stinging. They became facts, not wounds, lessons, not weights. Then, out of nowhere, came the wedding invitation. It was from my cousin Lily. We'd grown up close, drifted in our teens, but she was one of the few family members who never tried to control or guilt me. Her note was short and sweet. "It would mean a lot if you came," she wrote. I hesitated. I knew my parents would be there, probably half the family who still whispered behind my back. But something in me felt ready. I didn't want to live my life avoiding places just because they held old shadows. So I went. I wore a simple navy dress, brought Theo to stay with Marcus for the day, and braced myself. The venue was beautiful. A garden in full bloom, lights strung between trees, soft music playing. When I arrived, Lily saw me from across the lawn and ran straight into my arms. "I didn't think you'd come," she said, "but I'm so glad you did." And for a moment, that warmth reminded me what family could feel like when it wasn't soaked in control. Of course, it didn't take long for the other faces to spot me. My mom approached slowly, my dad just behind her. She didn't look angry, just cautious. "Thank you for coming," she said. I nodded. "I came for Lily." Her smile faltered, but she didn't argue. Maybe she was finally learning. My father offered a stiff handshake. That was it. No attempts at conversation, no guilt bombs dropped in my lap, just cold civility. I could live with that. But the real surprise came during the reception. I was sitting at a small table near the back, sipping wine, when I saw Sarah walk in. My stomach tightened. I hadn't expected her to be here. I wasn't even sure she and Lily were close. She looked different, more polished, maybe a little thinner, like she was trying hard to give the impression that life was going just fine. She noticed me immediately. For a second, we both froze. Then she started walking over. I considered getting up and walking away, but I stayed. "Hi," she said softly, standing just beside the table. "Hi. I didn't think you'd be here." "Same." There was an awkward silence. She looked like she wanted to say something important, something rehearsed maybe. But I wasn't in the mood to be someone's closure. Not anymore. "I'm glad you're doing okay," she finally said. I nodded. "I am." She lingered, as if waiting for me to give her more. I didn't. Eventually, she gave a small nod and walked away. And just like that, the chapter that had haunted me for so long felt finished. Not rewritten, not erased, but closed. The rest of the evening passed without incident. I danced with Lily, laughed with a few distant cousins, even had a long, surprisingly open chat with an uncle who confessed he never liked the way my parents hovered over me. It was strange how things came out once people stopped pretending everything was perfect. As I left the wedding, the cool night air wrapped around me like a new kind of comfort. I had faced everything I used to avoid. My parents, Sarah, the judgmental, looks, and I'd come out intact, stronger even. Back home, I found Theo waiting by the door like always, tail wagging, tongue out, a little ball of love with fur. I knelt down, scratched behind his ears, and whispered, "We're okay," and I meant it. The betrayal I'd experienced, the lies, the manipulation, the violation of trust, had once threatened to break me. But it didn't. It shaped me. It forced me to rebuild, to re-examine what love and loyalty actually meant. And, in doing so, it gave me something unexpected. Clarity. I no longer craved their approval. I no longer begged for explanations or apologies that might never come. I had stopped asking for peace from people who thrived in chaos. I created my own instead. Some people say forgiveness is the final step, but I don't think that's always true. Sometimes peace comes not from forgiving others, but from choosing to stop giving them space in your heart. And that's exactly what I did.